Thank you, Secretary Boyette. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maggie Woods. I'm a policy and program manager here at the Institute for Emerging Issues, and I'm so excited to introduce our final community innovators. But before I do, I just want to start with a special thank you. This is a thank you to Jeff Polish. Jeff is the executive director of the Monty, and he's a master storyteller, and he's been working with our community innovators to help them craft their stories of both their personal lives and their work, and I think it's really been showing. So thank you to Jeff. We appreciate your partnership. Yeah. These community innovators that I'm about to introduce you to are leveraging broadband in a variety of ways, from banding together to address the digital divide in their regions, to making their county a go-to place for teleworkers, to our next community that's creating a co-working space and a business accelerator. I'm pleased to announce our next community innovator, Will Aycock, representing the City of Wilson and RIoT.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. The story I'm going to tell starts a real similar place to John Mark's this morning. It starts on a family farm, and it starts with me and my grandfather, and me being underfoot when I was too young to be of help, and then later working alongside him. We were raising tobacco, curing it, sheeting it, taking it to the warehouses for auction. And those early trips to the warehouse were the greatest opportunity of my youth. I look forward to going and hearing the auctioneers and watching the buyers and maybe getting to turn the tags if the offer from the buyers was not sufficient based on my grandfather's judgment. But even back in those days, change was quickly upon us. Technology was a thing more than 30 years ago, and pretty soon the work of 20 or more people was being done by maybe 4 or 5 on my family's farm. And it was about then that I started hearing this story, which is, Will, there's no future for you on this farm. In fact, there's not even really opportunity for you and your community here. You're going to need to go elsewhere to find your way in this world. And it was about then also that I started high school, where I worked and studied and played with the sons and daughters of people from all walks of life in Wilson. Your doctors and lawyers and bankers and manufacturers and pharmaceutical plant workers, and we were all being told a real similar story. There's no future here for you. So when we graduated, many of us left, myself included. The break was never clean for me, however, as I constantly found myself back in Wilson because seeking opportunity in education requires some pocket money. And I was able to do things in Wilson like to help build the Merck plant that was then under construction. But soon I graduated and I knew I had to go to some big city to find this opportunity they'd always told me about. And I bounced around for a little while and never quite could find this opportunity. But then for personal reasons, I kind of had to hit pause, and I said I need to go back to Wilson for a little while, and was able to find a job with the City of Wilson. And I was sure that there was just a brief stop on my journey to some grand opportunity. But eventually, the opportunity found me. A large technology consulting firm offered me a job writing technical implementation plans for customers all across the United States, and I knew I had found it. I took the job and quickly learned 2 things. One is that the inside of server rooms and chain hotels look exactly the same from coast to coast. And 2 was that I was a complete and total idiot. I realized that every time I had needed an opportunity in my life, my community had provided one to me, just hadn't recognized it. So I picked up the phone and called the city and asked that they would please let me come back, and thankfully they did. In the 15-odd years since then, I've come to realize that those opportunities afforded to me were not accidental, but were rather the result of intentional leadership by the generations of Wilsonians who came before me. They did things like invest in public utility infrastructure and create one of the first tax incentive districts for tobacco warehouses in downtown Wilson. And much later, they invested in a 75-year water supply to ensure the sustainability of our community. Time and again, Wilson's leaders have made the bold decisions necessary to create continued opportunity. And now it is our turn. So in Wilson, we are carrying that tradition forward. We have built a community-wide fiber-to-the-home network that makes affordable next-generation broadband available to everyone within our city, and we are slowly but surely expanding it to everywhere that we are legally allowed to serve. But as you've heard today, these efforts are not sufficient. So my co-founder, Rebecca Agner, and I have created Gig East, a program and a home for the arts, innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship in our community and region. And most importantly, I'm most excited to say we've developed a partnership with RIoT. And RIoT is bringing many programs to Wilson. They are bringing their Main Street IoT program. They are bringing a pre-accelerator development program for our existing businesses. And they are bringing the RIoT Accelerator program to Wilson. And I'm pleased to announce that we have 7 businesses from all across our region, state, and nation who will be coming to Wilson this fall to participate in this program. We have the potential now for more opportunity in non-urban parts and in urban parts of this state than have ever been possible before, but only if we continue to have the courage required to invest in infrastructure and the wisdom to tell new and different stories of opportunity. So my hope is this may be the last time you hear from Will Aycock, and rather you will hear from all these people who are coming through the programs we are working to create. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Will. Now on to our next community innovator, John Connot, representing Land of Sky Regional Council West Engine Broadband Initiative.
Thank you. The people of Western North Carolina are descendants of Samuel Davison, a poor Scotch-Irish frontiersman who was the first white man to cross into the Shenandoah Valley to make a better life for his family. Our families must rely on free Wi-Fi in public buildings or our favorite fast food restaurants to do schoolwork or conduct everyday business. We want to be the first in our families to get in higher education. We want to be pioneers and make a better life for our families. North Carolina is first in flight. Can we be first in fiber? We want internet for all. We are descendants of E.W. Grove, an early Western North Carolina entrepreneur. We want to create communities or businesses that will support our families in this worldwide economy. We want to build the next Grove Park Inn or the next great manufacturing company and compete on the world stage. We want internet for all. We are descendants of thousands of families who came to Western North Carolina to escape the heat of Charleston summers. Some of us visit regularly for extended period of times, while others have made the decision to retire here and begin second careers. No longer do we want to be totally cut off from the world. We want to enjoy the peace and the quiet of the mountains, but we want reliable connection to the outside world. We want internet for all. This is why regional leaders started a conversation about better broadband. We began by trying to educate ourselves about what was hindering the expansion of broadband infrastructure in our region. We quickly realized that topography, limited density, and the cost of construction were enormous barriers to fiber deployment. So West Engine was formed to help broadband providers overcome these barriers. We had ideas of grandeur. We truly believed that we could attract one of the big broadband providers, think Google, to bring high-speed internet to Western North Carolina. Our goal was to get high-speed internet access to those who didn't have any and get competitive access to those who did. Our vision was internet for all. In the beginning, we tried to use our most populated metropolitan areas to collectively leverage our population density to help better connect our cities with an end goal of finding a provider who would be interested in the long game of connecting the rural areas of the region into their network. We formed a community of 6 cities and the University of North Carolina at Asheville to participate in what is now known as West Engine. All 7 partners contributed to funding to hire a broadband consultant to develop a request for proposals to utilize communities' assets such as expedited permitting, right-of-way, and vertical assets. Through the RFP, we were able to recruit 2 new companies who had interest in the area. We held community meetings, and the new providers were introduced to citizens who were demanding better broadband. However, there were unexpected consequences of our efforts. By bringing in new companies, our incumbent providers decided it was time to upgrade and expand into new areas. Imagine that. Since the beginning of this project, hundreds of new connections and miles of fiber have been added in the region. but we could not rest on our laurels. As much as 20% of the region is still unserved. Although West Indian was seeing success in urban areas, we needed to do more. We needed to improve coverage in the rural areas. So to keep the project alive, we obtained an Appalachian Regional Commission grant to work at the county level. We showed our elected leaders and funding partners that the FCC maps didn't paint the whole picture. In doing so, we opened up the potential for federal grants to help these rural areas with the least access. We are here today to proudly proclaim that some of the region's most rural, most difficult terrain, least populated areas now have gigabit fiber to the home. In a matter of months after connectivity, there are reports of people working from home, families transitioning into homeschool networks, and talks of a community center that may want to be a co-working space. That's what we're about. We're about removing barriers that keep portions of the region from thriving through infrastructure. Broadband as infrastructure is critical to the success of our communities in our state. One piece of pipe at a time, 1 mile of a road at a time, one roll of fiber at a time. Our small West Indian community has grown from 6 cities and 1 university to 6 cities, 4 counties, multiple colleges and universities, public and private sector leaders, digital inclusion enthusiasts, and community members. We have held 3 regional summits and assembled a group of people that continue to be motivated to make the difference so that all people can have superior broadband. As long as there are people in the region without connectivity, there's still work for us to do. We demand internet for all.
Thank you, John. Now, to introduce our last community innovator, Zack Barraclough, representing Wilkes Community College.
Hi there, good afternoon. All right, it's late in the afternoon. I'm going to do a quick poll with y'all. How many of you drive to work? All right, good portion. How many of you drive at least 10 minutes to work? At least 20 minutes to work? At least 30 minutes to work? More than 30 minutes? Nice. Yeah, so you have felt my pain. How many of you on that drive to work during your commute at some point have thought, why am I doing this to myself? You're swerving and battling through. Yeah, I got a few folks that are with me on that. This was my reality, and my wife and I, when we lived in suburbs and cities, our observation was that we felt like we were just constantly sitting and standing in lines. We were sitting in traffic. We were standing in line at Starbucks, at the restaurant. We were even standing in lines to volunteer our time. It seemed like we were kind of constantly waiting to live life, sort of like when you go to the amusement park and you're standing in line way more than you're actually riding on the rides. Everybody have that experience? So we over time, it kind of wore on us, and we got to the point where we really needed to make a change. And we weren't sure if we were quite mentally ready to make the leap out of a suburb or out of a city, and we were kind of stressed about it. We were thinking, what's it going to do to our career or our social life? Are there going to be enough extracurriculars for our kids? And we were just nervous. We weren't sure if it was going to work. And ultimately, we got to a point where we needed to make a leap. And we made a leap. And we moved to this beautiful small town, Sparta, North Carolina. Anybody know where that is? Oh, yeah, great. Allegheny County, great spot. So we're in northwest North Carolina. And I don't know if you all remember a little bit earlier, they were showing some of the heat maps of connectivity. But it turns out that northwest North Carolina, as rural as it is, Ashe County, Wilkes County, Allegheny County, there's some phenomenal internet connectivity there. In fact, our little town of Sparta, population 1,800, had fiber optic internet before Miami and Atlanta. Is that wild? And it's thanks to our co-ops. We have some great co-ops up there, Skyline, SkyBest, Wilkes Communications, RidgeLink. They really did the work of it. But my wife and I were a part of a growing population. We realized that we're beneficiaries of that. So we moved to Sparta, and what we realized is that we weren't alone. There's this growing population of folks that have sort of decided to opt out of the suburban slug of making your way through traffic and fighting your way along. And they're moving to the mountains. They're moving to these beautiful places where we have rivers and we have mountains and we have trails and hiking. And we have great schools, as it turns out. So our kids are doing just fine. So we made that leap, and we have loved it. And we've met all kinds of interesting people who are doing interesting work. And I think this is kind of a snapshot of what rural North Carolina could look like in the future. So we have software engineers, we have data analysts, we have instructional designers, we have writers, consultants. They travel when they need to, but they live and enjoy the lifestyle of the mountains while they're there. We have one couple who lives way out in the mountains, and they literally have 2 creek crossings to get into their cabin. Meanwhile, they have a gigabit of internet to do their work, which is far flung. So these are remote employees, these are freelancers, these are entrepreneurs. They're working for companies in Raleigh, they're working for companies in Charlotte, but they're also working for companies in Chicago, Los Angeles, all over the place. This is a snapshot, I think, of our future. And we talk about the rural-urban divide, which is a real thing in a lot of ways. But when it comes to professional services, when it comes to remote workers, this is largely a construct of our own minds. If we have great internet and we're committed to doing our work and doing it well, you can do it from anywhere. I had an employee, young millennial, good talent. We let him travel the world for 2 years, and he did copy editing and quality assurance for us. You can work from anywhere. You can make it happen. So we feel in Northwest North Carolina that we're a great spot to choose. It's a great spot, not just to retire, but to bring your family to, or as a young upstart entrepreneur to start a company. And we are just about to launch Startup Northwest NC, which is one of our first regional efforts to kind of catalyze around this vision for the future. It's going to be a platform and a promotional program to connect entrepreneurs to resources, to one another, to opportunities. And over the coming years, we want to really expand our telework economy. And so that telework economy includes folks that are moving into the area, like myself, but they also include, as a representative of Wilkes Community College, we think about our local workforce and those folks that are there, that have grown up there, and that maybe have never been given the skills and the orientation to take advantage of that global economy. So that's what we want to do in Northwest NC, is expand that telework economy. And we want to build partnerships with forward-looking companies like SAS and Red Hat and IBM and maybe your organization. Just thinking about your employees, how many of them could work remotely, could live in Ashe, Wilkes, Allegheny County, and maybe go mountain biking on their lunch break and be really happy, productive, creative employees for you. Because and I don't have data to back this up, but my hypothesis is that bumper-to-bumper traffic and road rage do not foster creativity and productivity. That's my own experience anyways. So there is a little bit of a transition, though. So we have some friends up there. They moved from Atlanta to Sparta. Big transition. And in Atlanta, they got used to making their way through the traffic and battling that battle every day. And so they were sitting one day at one of 3 stoplights in Sparta, and they pulled up behind this pickup truck, and the light turned green. Pickup truck didn't go. So just out of muscle memory, they gave a good honk. And not only did the truck not go, fella put it in park, got out of the truck, and walked back to them and said, "Hey, I heard you honk. Y'all okay? Everything okay?" That's what you get in a small town. You got friendly folks. We have great connectivity. There's plenty of opportunity, and we want to invite you all to join us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. You've convinced me. All right. Well, these 3 teams, along with the 2 you just heard before lunch, have joined 15 other community initiatives that we've been highlighting as a part of ReConnect NC. Throughout this series, we are highlighting teams that are doing amazing work. And we know that reconnection is an idea that people across the state have identified as important. But the work of reconnection takes place locally. and we are honored to collaborate with these communities who are doing it. And many of these communities are able to do their work more effectively thanks to these organizations that are supporting their work: Anonymous Trust, State Employees Credit Union Foundation, and Appalachian Regional Commission. So thank you to these funders, and let's give Will, John, and Zach another round of applause. Thank you.